Hello. So in this episode of Writing Notes, we're going to talk about summary. So in my video on summary, paraphrase, and quotation, I talked a little bit about summary as a specific technique for incorporating material from research sources. But here we're going to talk about summary as a broader technique on its own. So summary, in essence, is about taking a large text, taking something substantial, maybe it's a book, maybe it's an entire article, maybe it's an idea, something like this, and compressing it, condensing it down into an easy to understand package that fits within a particular paper, a particular video, a particular essay, particular whatever it is. So the idea here is that you are giving your audience a quick overview of the particular thing. Why is this useful? This is useful because this can help orient your readers or your viewers or whatever it is without them having to go and actually read or watch the entire thing that you're summarizing. So, for instance, if I am writing a scholarly article and I need to draw on Michel Foucault's theory of the panopticon from Discipline and Punish, his book Discipline and Punish, or if I just wanted to summarize his book Discipline and Punish altogether, I could condense that entire book into a few sentences. That's tremendously useful for any reader who does not know or has not read Discipline and Punish, but who wants to fundamentally be able to follow my argument. So that's one technique that we can use to make our readers' lives easier. The other thing that's useful about summary is that, or two other things that are useful about summary. One is that I can put that source material within my own framework. So if I wanted to summarize Discipline and Punish using the language that I've already started using in my essay, I can do that. So I can present Foucault's ideas using the same language my readers are already going to be familiar with. So that's one additional benefit of it. The other additional benefit is that I can choose what I emphasize. So I can choose a particular point to make more significant if that's what's going to support my argument. So that's really useful because, again, ultimately, if I'm incorporating a summary of another source, if I'm incorporating a summary of a video or a book or a movie or whatever it is, an idea, I want that to work. I want that summary to work for me. So, how do you approach a summary? What do you do to summarize something effectively? Well, one of the key things that you want to make sure, and this is just sort of a general approach. You may have more detail, less detail, but this is the basics of summary. So one is you want to specifically, if you're summarizing a book or an article or something like this is going to make more sense. If you're summarizing something like a movie, something like a novel, I'm talking scholarly book here, something like a movie or a novel, it's a little bit different, but still the same principles apply. So that's all of my caveats. So the first thing that you want to think about is, what's the thesis of this source? So again, if we're going to stick with Discipline and Punish, what's the central argument or the central idea, the central claim that Foucault is making in that book? So that's the first thing that I want to go into my summary. Discipline and Punish is fundamentally arguing X. Discipline and Punish is fundamentally arguing that in a culture pervaded by surveillance, the human subject internalizes that surveillance and changes their behavior accordingly. Fine. So that's the first thing. The first stage of a good summary is going to be, here's the key idea, the main thing this source is saying, or the main idea of this source. Then you want to identify key supporting points. So what are the main pieces of evidence, the main arguments, the main ideas that this source uses to support that thesis? Then, for my money, you want to think about, you want to briefly assess how persuasive is this argument? How convincing is this central claim? Is this well supported? Is this poorly supported? Does it fail in some way to stand up logically, or is this a compelling argument? So those are the things that you want to be thinking about with the summary. You want to be thinking about the main argument, condense that down, and again, scale is relative here, but if you're writing, say, a 4 to 6 page paper for a composition class, an English class, something like this, you might scale a book or an article down, give us one sentence on the main idea, one sentence on the thesis, maybe 2 sentences to 3 sentences on key points, key ideas, as well as any key evidence that you think is worth mentioning. And then maybe 2 sentences assessing the source. So that gives you a solid paragraph. And that's, you can present a very strong summary in a paragraph, again, provided that you are condensing this material effectively and condensing it in such a way that it makes sense to your readers, because that's one of the things you do want with a summary, is you want to make sure that this is accessible to your readers, and again, that you're presenting the key ideas in a way that makes sense with the argument that you're making.